We welcome to the Only Fools and Horses podcast Nick Stringer, who played the part of Jumbo Mills in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and you also starred in Go West, Young Man, didn't you?
I did, yes. As an Australian buying a dodgy car.
So you're not actually Australian. I thought you were Australian.
Well, strangely enough, Ray Butt, who was the producer director, long after Only Fools had finished, he had a pilot for a sitcom about Australian expats living in Earl's Court, and he offered me a part in it and said, "You'd be perfect because you're Australian." And I said, "I'm terribly sorry, Ray, to sort of dampen your enthusiasm at this point, but actually I'm not Australian." But he'd given me these two parts on the basis that I was Australian. So there we are.
You did it very well. It was very convincing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Can you remember, Nick, what you were doing at the time of when you first got the part of Go West, Young Man? What were you acting at the time? Or?
Yeah, that was 1981. I left drama school in 1973. I kind of mainly did theatre up until probably about 79, 80. And like around about 79, 80, I started getting some TV work. Mainly I met Nick Lyndhurst doing an episode of Butterflies. And I met David Jason previously by doing 2 episodes of Open All Hours. So I was beginning to kind of get into that sort of BBC, I suppose it was like a little repertory club. I mean, if you look back at it now, you probably see the same boring old faces, going round and round. But yeah, so 1981, it was sort of the beginning of my television life. The thing I suppose I remember mostly is that we did the externals, we did the location on the night that Tottenham, do you remember the Tottenham team that had Ricky Villa and Ozzy Ardiles in it?
I do.
And they had a replay. There was a replay of the FA Cup final.
Manchester City they played, I remember, yeah.
You scored that great goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. But you can imagine, like, we're filming in London. So like all the Sparks, all the Chippies, more or less the entire crew are all kind of London club supporters and are all rooting for Tottenham. I mean, we couldn't find anyone. You go looking for an electrician and he'd be glued to a TV in the back of a transit van somewhere. So that's what I remember most about that episode to some extent.
Was it be unusual to play on that night? Because I think the replays were always on a Thursday night in the FA Cup, weren't they? So it would be unlucky.
Right, yes.
You wouldn't know that game would take place, would you, when you
no
scenes and the filming?
Absolutely,
yeah.
no, because as far as the schedulers were concerned, Saturday would have finished and done with the FA Cup, but there we were.
And Nick, what are some of your memories of filming?
Of that episode or generally?
Generally, yeah.
Generally of Only Fools, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, it was, I mean, in the Go West Young Man, the 1981, I mean, it's very daunting. I hadn't done very much television at all. And I don't think by that time I'd actually done any location work. So I was a bit sort of kind of like, well, this is Hollywood, this is, I've made it here. I'm well on the way. But I mean, and the second one, when I played Jumbo, that was all done in the studio. That was all studio work. And by that time I was having done, work with Ronnie on Open All Hours. That was all studio work as well, so that I was well used to it by then. And it's quite interesting because you've got an audience, you have an audience, which actually kind of gives it a real edge. It's rather nice because you have to time your laughs and you have to kind of do it properly. I've worked on some sitcoms since where they don't have an audience and they dub the laughter in, and it's like, it's a bit like sort of standing outside and weeing in the rain, really. Excuse the expression.
Did you look at the roles differently, Nick? When you played the Aussie guy buying the car and Go West Young Man in series 1, the second episode, which it was, no one knows really about the show. You're probably looking at it as just another role. No one knows how big the show's going to become. And by the time you're playing Jumbo Mills, it's series 5 and the show's established, isn't it? In the Who Wants a Millionaire. Did you, in your own head, was it totally a different job, if you like, from series 1 to 5?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely spot on, because I suppose in 1980, when in Go West Young Man, the only people who sort of had any investment in it were David and Nick, the guy playing Grandad, Leonard, is it?
Leonard Pierce, yeah.
Yeah. And the producer director, Ray Butt. The rest of us, it was just a job. But by the time I came, because there was 5 years, it was 1986, I think, when I did Jumbo. I mean, as you say, it was the go-to play. If you got an episode of Only Fools at that time, you were guaranteed to be seen by 9, 10, 11 million people. It was a big deal.
Yeah, it definitely was. On the Go West Young Man, that episode, the story behind it, are you an escaped convict, or is that, it's weird because why I say that, there's a t-shirt with a serial number on, isn't there?
Well, you see, that was the costume department at the BBC. I don't know what their brief they'd been given by Ray, but it was it was Perth Jail, and then a number underneath it. In fact, I kept that sweatshirt for many a year, and it finally fell to pieces, and had to be buried with due ceremony. No, but it was their idea of, and I think also kind of like they wanted him looking quite rough. And as I recall, they asked me not to shave, not to have my hair cut, or, do you know what I mean? Not that I've got a lot of hair to cut anyway, but, they wanted him looking quite rough and ready, I think. I think because at the end, when I finally catch up with Del Boy, having found out that the Ford Cortina is a Duff one, I think they kind of wanted him to be quite threatening, if you see what I mean, so that Del Boy, otherwise Del could have kind of used his charm and kind of backpedaled and kind of gone, it's all right, it's okay, it's cushy, don't worry about it. Whereas he wanted, I think, to kind of have this feeling that there was a big Aussie bloke who's going to beat 7 shades of what's it out of him, I think that was the idea behind it.
Did you keep the scripts?
No, well, I did keep one, which I have sold for ready money.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, I get asked quite often if I've kept any of the strips, but the only one I didn't keep that one. I didn't keep Go West Young Man, because, as I've already said, it was like it was just a job. Nobody knew where it was going. It probably ended up sort of lighting a fire somewhere or doing something. But I kept the other one. I kept the Jumbo Mills one and finally sold it a couple of years ago. Yeah.
You never kept your wig then?
I did.
You did?
I did. Yes. I think that was the most expensive thing I've ever. They sent me to a proper toupee wig maker, and she made this. I think it cost about 500 or 600 quid. It was a proper kosher thing, And I had it was presented to me on a wig block, one of those sort of dummy heads. And I said at the end of the shoot, I said to the makeup lady, I said, "How much would you like that for?" And she said, "Well, it's not going to fit anyone else, Nick. It would only clutter up the storage." So out it came, and I did. I kept it for quite a long while. Impressed quite a few girls along the way, I have to say.
It did look a good wig, like you say, the colour and everything and the fit. I thought it would have cost a bit of money. Yeah,
absolutely. It was really only when my hair turned this rather elegant silver that I now have that it became useless. Because it would look rather daft if I put it on now. Although I don't know where it is. I think I gave it to my daughter as a makeup artist, a TV and film makeup artist. I think she might have it somewhere, but I don't know. There we go.
Ah, there you go. I didn't expect you to say that. I thought you would have said, "Oh, I got rid of that years ago." But
Oh no.
but no, that's great.
No, I rather liked it. It was a sort of it was so, because it was so personalized, because it was for me. You keep it, whereas I suppose if if they'd given me a moustache, maybe I'd have used that as well, kept that. I don't know. It's weird the things actors hang on to.
Yeah.
Like the sweatshirt from Go West Young Man. I mean, I literally had that all well up into the late 1990s.
Wow.
And I was still wearing it. I mean, all right, it was kind of like if I had any painting to do or a bit of gardening, then
you wore it around the house, did you? I didn't realise that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I know. I could have sold it for millions, but there we go.
Yeah, in a frame and everything. Yeah, what a shame.
I know.
I think that's one of the funniest moments in Who Wants a Millionaire, though. When you're, I don't know if you remember this, Nick. Well, I'm sure you do. You're at the bar, and then you say to it's Del, Rodney, and Albert. You say, "You think I'm bald, don't you?" And you say, "Well, I'm not." And Albert says, "Well, that's hell of a parting, son." I just think that's a brilliant line. And then you say, "The doctors have assured me that my own hair will grow back eventually." Then a minute you go to the toilet, then don't you? You leave, you come back, and you put your wig on, and Rodney says, "Wow, they weren't kidding when they said your hair was going to grow back." I just think that's one of the most favourite moments of all the episodes.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was just pure John Sullivan, wasn't it? I mean, what a writer, what a great writer.
What's your best memories about being on set or meeting the cast?
Just I mean, well, hugely professional. Because the danger with something like that, and especially with someone like David Jason, who I had to say, I haven't worked with him in a long while, but at that time he had a definite twinkle. I mean, he was a twinkler, and you especially that bit where he I think it was the Bollinger, is it the line something about Bollinger, and he says, "No, it's true," something like that.
Yeah, it's Prince Charles's favourite champagne.
Yeah,
he calls it Dillinger's, doesn't he, Del Boy? And you say, "No, that's Bollinger's," and he says, I can't swear, but it's blank true. It's blank true. I'm telling you.
Yes, that's right. He does. I mean, at that point, I mean, he's got a twinkle, and I'm like, I've really got to sort of be stern with myself and make sure that I don't go with it. I mean, the one do you remember Kev Lloyd from The Bill? Played Tosh.
Yes, the moustache, hasn't he?
Yeah. Kev and I couldn't act together. It was, I mean, we were awful. We just laughed. We worked in theatre together when we were both literally kind of our first jobs. And he did something to me on stage, and it stayed as a memory. Do you know what I mean? So every time I looked at his face, I would start laughing. I would just start giggling because that memory and that would set him off. And we did an episode or something. I can't remember what it was now. And we both knew the director. We'd worked with the director as an actor and as a director. And we said to him, I said to him, I said, "Listen, mate, there's no way I can act with Lloydie. You're going to have to do separate takeaways, separate headshots with that." And he went, no, you'll be fine. You're very professional. You're experienced. So's Kev. It'll be fine. Anyway, we got on set, and then we ended up doing the scene, talking to the continuity lady who was reading the script off camera. I mean, we were just awful. But David was a close second. I have to say, he was a twinkler, and but everybody knew that, I think, and so you kind of really gritted your teeth to get through any particularly funny moments.
In Who Wants a Millionaire, I don't know if this is true, Nick, but I heard that it was going to be possibly David Jason's last episode, because I heard originally he was going to go to Australia with Jumbo, and then they were going to carry on the show without David, and they were going to call it Hot Rod. Any rumour about that at the time? I don't think David was very happy with the 30 minutes. I think he wanted it to go to 50, which it did later go to 50, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah, but I suppose by then they'd done a few Christmas specials, hadn't they? And he liked that format a bit more. No, I didn't hear anything about that.
No, don't know whether it's true.
And I'm not sure whether it would have succeeded, to be honest.
I don't think it would have.
I don't think it would have.
No. Been a totally different show, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been a spin-off, wouldn't it? Let's face it, really.
Yes. Yeah. And you'd have had to have started making up stuff that hadn't occurred. You know what I mean? You've been doing it for 6 years, and then all of a sudden you have to start making up stuff about Rodney or Grandad or whatever, or Uncle Albert, that had never been mentioned in 6 years. And like the audience aren't stupid. They suddenly would go, well, you know, what the blooming heck's going on here? You know, they never mentioned that Rodney was a love child of a Nigerian prince, you know. I mean, you know what I mean?
Do you wish you'd had more episodes as Jumbo Mills? Because I think there was mileage in that, wasn't there? I know he lived in Australia, but there was quite a history. There were school friends, weren't they? And he had a fish stall called Eels on Wheels that was revealed in Jolly Boy's outing when they were in Margate.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Well, yes. I mean, of course, I would have loved it. I mean, it would have been such fun and a lovely job to do. But you don't go in with that, especially on a sitcom where you're not one of the regular characters. You mustn't go in with that kind of preconception or pre-hope, because 9 times out of 10 it won't happen. So I was happy just to get the job and do it.
You were lucky.
Sorry, Chris.
And you were lucky because you came back twice, didn't you?
How do you mean?
Well, I mean, usually when somebody comes in for one part, they don't come back again for another part years later, do they? So in that respect,
I think Ray was depending on the amnesia of the British public. I mean, I did actually mention it to him at the interview for Jumbo, when he asked me to go up to White City just to have a chat about it. And I said to him, Ray, you do remember I did an episode in series 1. He went, oh yeah, no, don't worry about it. No, they'll have forgotten you by now. And I didn't know whether to kind of go, oh, thanks a lot, mate, you know, or go, oh, fine, great, we'll get on with it.
Yeah, you're in an elite club of 2 episodes. There's only about a handful of people. A couple of actors have done 2 roles as well.
There's 1 or 2 who made the step up from background artist to featured artist, and so they were a background artist in one of the series 1, and then they've come back later on as a featured artist. But there's not many who featured artists in 2 episodes. I think, as you say, I think there's probably about 2 others.
Yeah, Jeff Stevenson, who we have had on a podcast, he did 2 different characters, and Hoskins, a policeman, don't you remember, he's into Hull and Back?
Oh, yeah.
And May the Force Be With You. He played the same role though, actually. Yeah. So yeah. Do you still get recognised for Only Fools and Horses? You know, in the street and things.
Yes, yeah. Mainly at airports when people are bored waiting for their flight.
Typical.
I get you sort of sit there with your coffee, and you know, you sat there looking at your tablet, doing whatever, and you're just suddenly aware that there's on the aisle across the way, there's a bloke or a woman kind of nudging their partner, going, him. I mean, and it's and if they pluck up the courage, I'm usually polite to them and answer their questions, but I don't sort of go over and say, yes, it is me, you're quite right. Yes, because I years ago I was on Coronation Street. I was the replacement pub manager for Fred Feast when Fred Feast got moved off the street. And I went through, and I was playing this publican, and I went to this party in, I was living in South London at the time, in Balham, and I went to this party, and there was this bloke there, and he swore blind for the whole evening that I ran a pub in Merstham, South London. And I said, no, I don't, I'm an actor, blah, blah, blah. No, you run a pub in Merstham. And eventually my mates came over and said, he's the relief pub manager on Coronation Street. No, he's not. You can't fool me. He runs a
Strange.
pub in Merstham. I've been there. And it went, and eventually I just sort of go and say, "You're absolutely right. I do run a pub in Merstham." See, I told you. And it was like, so I don't sort of ever kind of go up and say, "Yes, you're quite right. It is me," because 9 times out of 10 they'll turn around and go, "Oh no, it's not who I thought it was."
And in that role, isn't it true that, because it was on Facebook not long ago, a couple of weeks ago, you actually have a wig in that show as well, don't you? The Coronation Street, and don't they pull the wig off you? Is that right? Les Battersby, is it?
Yes, I've done 1, 2, 3. I think I've done 4 different characters in the street. And the last time I was in there purely on my singing ability, as you'll have seen in the episode. They said, "You've got to sing badly, Nick." And I said, "No problem there, mate." Yes, the wig came off. And I didn't keep that wig. I wasn't allowed. Mind you, I don't think I asked. But there we are.
Do you prefer, it might be an obvious question, this, but do you prefer either episode that you're in more than the other, or are they equal billing, would you say?
I think I enjoyed Jumbo better. Probably because I was more experienced and I knew what I was doing. But I mean, if you look at it sort of word for word, it's a better script in that respect.
Yeah, and I expect with your first role, was he even called anything? Was he, the
No.
guy who bought the car?
He wasn't. He was called Aussie Man.
Oh, great.
I mean, it would have been nice if he'd had a name, wouldn't it? But there we go. Neville or something like that.
So yeah, no. The Ford Cortina would be worth a lot of money now, I would imagine, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it just?
Yeah. Wouldn't it just?
I mean, Ford Cortinas anyway are worth a few bob. But I mean, if you could sort of get the provenance and prove that was the Cortina that was in that episode, I mean, thousands, absolutely thousands of pounds.
It's never reared its head, because obviously Perry at the Appreciation Society, I've never seen it sort of broadcast on there. I think they've got the E-Type Jag that you ran in the back of.
Have, yeah, yes,
that.
Yeah. Yes, it's I mean, the thing is, I mean, I should imagine that the props department probably went around a few scrap yards and just kind of got something, and when and sort of said, well, if I can borrow it for an evening, here's 50 quid backhander, and I'll return it to you in the morning, and then it got scrapped. I mean, that's probably what happened.
Yeah, I think memorabilia back then, it wasn't really seen on. I think like now, if you were in Fools and Horses, you'd keep your outfits, wouldn't you? Like you say, you'd have them in frames probably, and never. But
it goes back to your point, that at the time nobody knew what it was going to become. So why keep anything? Why keep it?
Exactly. And with memorabilia, the only reason the stuff from the past is so valuable is for that very reason, isn't it? Really?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there was only ever one of it. There was only ever one of those Ford Cortinas that was used in that episode. It's not like you're going to be able to reproduce it and sell dozens of them, is it? So, yeah, I mean, it's big business now. I mean, I go to occasionally these Only Fools and Horses conventions, and people are willing to pay very good money for bits and pieces of memorabilia. It's a good business.
That's the issue with the trotter van, that if somebody says, oh, this was on the show, I think they used about 14 of the vans in total, so you never know what episode was it in. But like you said, with the Cortina, if you did have that, that what you've got is the real deal, haven't you there?
Yeah.
I think that was a brilliant in that Go West Young Man, where Dell's selling you that Cortina. That salesmanship was the sales pitch and the BS that he gives you. The anti-dazzle mirror, the 1-speed wiper. He did an RAC 500-mile check, was it? Is it the African gazelle went extinct for this particular model?
Yes.
A sacrifice well made. But the best bit is when he says it belonged to a vicar who used to go to church there and back, and then he just looks and says, "You won't believe this, he's just left his Bible in the glove compartment." And that seals the sale for you, really, doesn't it? I don't think you're going to buy it until that point, are you, to be honest? You're not impressed with it?
No, I mean, I think he's sort of got a natural Aussie skepticism, but as you say, the patter the sales pitch is just irresistible, isn't it? I mean, you know.
I like the bit where your character goes like that on the car, and then Rodney said, your character says about the suspension, and Rodney said, "Yeah, it's gone now."
Yeah, you're bouncing it, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you have to audition for either part, Nick, at all?
Yes.
Yeah. So you had.
I had to audition for
Go West Young Man.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, I had to audition for that. I mean, the thing was that the old television centre at White City was a circular building. On the ground floor were the studios. And then I think you had something like sports and current affairs. Then you had sort of light entertainment, which included sitcoms. And then you had the drama. And the producers, and they were all in-house producers. They were all BBC producers. And they had their pet projects. Like there was Sid Lotterby with Open All Hours and Butterflies. There was Ray with Only Fools and Horses, and others. And they all had their offices in this circle. And you used to go in, and I'd go in and I'd see Ray for this part. And then I'd come out of there and I'd sort of wander along this corridor, and I'd put my head in, and there'd be Sid. And I go, "Well, Sydney, go, hello, Nick." And I go, "Anything coming up?" And he'd go, "Well, actually, as it happens, yes, I've got a." And so that's how the sort of process happened in those days. You sort of became part of a club, and you got used. You know, as long as you kept up the contacts, you were in there more or less. Yeah.
I know a lot of people or actors in Open All Hours have appeared in Fools and Horses, like you said. So that sort of bores out what you said there. So I think John Chalice was in Open All Hours, wasn't he? Was he a bread man?
He was. Yeah, he was. Yeah. Yes. I mean, it was. It was just the way it was done, you know. And it was the same on the drama floor. When you if you went in for a drama audition, you'd wander out and you'd look. They'd have all their names up on the doors, you know. And if you'd worked with them, you just knock on the door, poke your head around the corner and go, "Yeah, you know, I'm here, I'm available."
Yeah.
I'm out of work, you know.
We must mention Ronnie Barker. What was Ronnie Barker like to work with?
Again, Ronnie wasn't a twinkler, but he was so funny. I mean, so funny and such a good actor. I mean, as you know, my name is Nick Stringer, and first episode I did, and I think I was playing someone who was helping him bring a washing machine in while he got the VAT man there. And anyway, so Sid Lotterby, the director, we're in the rehearsal room at North Acton, and Sid says, "Ronnie, come over here. I want you to meet Nick Stringer, who's playing so-and-so." And Ronnie just went, Nick Stringer. I shall call you String Knickers. And that was it.
Just off the cuff.
I mean? Yeah, straight off the cuff, just like that. And I've got a feeling that it was in that episode that he developed the till that nearly took his fingers off every time he opened it. And he had a prop man stood behind the flat, and he was just because the thing obviously couldn't work properly. The prop man at the back had to pull it closed and push it open, right? And one time we were rehearsing, and the prop man pulled it too soon, and it did nearly catch Ronnie's fingers. But Ronnie saw the comic potential in that and said, hang on, wait. Let's see if we can work. And that's how I believe that's how that happened. And Ronnie developed that so that every time then, from then on, this till would nearly take his fingers off.
You saw the start of history there, really, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, you worked with Sir David Jason. What was he like to work with, and as a person?
At that time, always very nice. I mean, very kind to young actors coming through. Supportive is a word that gets used a lot, but when you're a young actor and you're in that situation, you need someone at the top the pecking order, to kind of make you feel that your contribution is important. And that's what David did. And I tell you, another actor who I worked with a couple of times who did that was Bob Hoskins.
Wow.
Bob would do that. It's like they had a sort of a memory of when they started and how kind of overwhelming it was. And they sort of thought, just the thoughtfulness of saying, well, it doesn't have to be like that for everybody. No, it was good. He was lovely, man. Yeah.
Do you watch the episodes much that you appeared in, Nick? Do you tend to do that with your work? Do you watch anything you've been in, really? Like the episodes?
No, I don't. I mean, I suppose like a lot of, I'm pleased with a lot of the stuff I've done, but I'm not sort of, because if you start resting and going, well, that was perfect, because nothing's perfect, is it? I mean, you know what I mean? You're always striving to be better. And so I was always looking to be better.
Did you watch the prequels? Sorry, Emily. Did you watch the prequels, Rock and Chips, at all? Because Jumbo Mills is featured quite a lot in there. It gives us more of a history of what the character was like, doesn't it? And what friendship he had with Del.
I did. I have to say, I wasn't overly impressed. I have to say, nothing to do with the actors. I just thought the concept and everything didn't quite work.
I don't think it was written as a comedy, was it particularly? But I thought it was interesting to see the history of how the characters developed in the early days. Yeah, so.
But yeah, very different from the original Only Fools and Horses, definitely. Yeah. Emily, did you want to ask something?
Are you still in contact with any of the cast?
No, I live in splendid retirement, Emily. I hung up my acting boots in 2013.
Wow.
And I haven't professionally done any professional acting work since then.
Are you enjoying retirement?
Sorry, Emily. No, go on, Emily.
Are you enjoying your retirement?
Yeah, I am actually. I mean, it's to be highly recommended, Emily. Not that, I mean, you've got them in ages till you get there.
I'm 23.
Yeah, I know. We got my partner and I. We were sat outside the other day, and we got a bench just outside our front door, and a young lady who lives up the road came out of her house ready to go out and go to work, and we just went, "This is what retirement's all about. This is it. This is what you're aiming for." And she looked very miffed, I have to say.
Do you think Del and Jumbo would have been a success in the car business in Australia? Del giving him all that razzmatazz, as you say.
I think Jumbo would have. I think Jumbo would have had maybe a few sort of legal problems along the way with Del's selling techniques. Mm-hmm. I got the feeling. My feeling was that Jumbo's business was quite legit. Once he got to Australia, and once he kind of set it up, that it was all kind of on the straight and narrow and done kind of properly. Whereas I think Del had this kind of memory of him and Jumbo together, kind of bending the rules and kind of like sticking things in the back of a van, and I think maybe Del Boy might have thought that's how it was going to be in Australia, but I don't think it would have been.
No.
It was funny when your character says, put Rodney on the payroll, and Del says, well, he's got 2 GCEs, thinking it'll impress you. And you go, that doesn't matter, we'll find him something to do. I thought it was quite funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
But back then it was a very different world, wasn't it? Like, talking of GCSEs, qualifications, things like that. Yeah. You didn't need them, did you? It was you'd have a job, you'd be good at it, and then you could go on to something else, and totally different world, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It's, and like you could change jobs. I mean, not just, I mean, in any walk of life. I mean, before I became an actor, I worked in an accounts department for a big oil company. I trained to become an accountant, which I didn't finish. I then moved on, worked in a bank, and sort of trained to become, you know, to do my banking exams, which I didn't finish because I went to drama school. But like, you know, so from the I left college when I was about 18. So between 18 and 24, you know, 3 different jobs, and you could just do it. You just kind of mooched around, and the jobs were there, but it's not the same today. No, you're glad if you've got good regular employment.
Where would you say Only Fools and Horses would rank in your career? Because obviously you've been in Open All Hours, which was a great comedy as well. What would be the highlight? You've been in The Bill as well, haven't you? And...
yeah, I mean, I would say it's difficult because I don't think you can compare situation comedy with drama, with film or whatever. But I mean, in terms of my television work, I mean, I'd say that one, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I think that has got to be probably in the top 2 of my television work. Yeah, definitely. And probably one of the Open All Hours would be in the top 5. Yeah.
Two of the greatest comedies.
Definitely. Yeah. Great. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, Nick. We're running out of time now, and it's been good.
Right.
Good to have you on.
I'd like to say I'm going down the pub now for a drink, but I'm not. So there we go.